Hey business besties, welcome back to the Female Founder World podcast. I'm Jasmine, I'm the host of the show and the creator behind the Female Founder World universe. I'm actually going to do something a little different and ask my guests to introduce themselves because we have two women, two sisters on the show, and I want you to know whose voice is who. Okay, introduce yourselves.
I'm Shaz. And I am Kiku.
And you guys are building a haircare brand called Shaz and Kiks.
You are now entering Female Founder World with your host, Jasmine Garnsworthy.
Yep.
For people who don't know the business, what are you guys creating?
So Shaz and Kiks is a hair wellness brand. We build foundational hair health through high-performing formulas that are rooted in Ayurveda. Ayurveda is the world's oldest healing system, originates from the Indian subcontinent, and it is our heritage and our culture. And we're excited to create products that utilize these wonderful, nutrient-rich ingredients, Indian herbs, oils, and flowers, and make them accessible and fun for all.
You started in 2020, which is an interesting time to launch, but actually a lot of people on the show did start around then. There are so many like pandemic babies that have now grown up, which is very, very cool. What were you doing before you started the business? And did you quit your job to start this, or what was the founder kind of story in the beginning?
I can start. So for me, I've had 20 plus year experience. I started out as a chemical engineer, and then throughout the last 20 years, I've worked at a lot of different Fortune 500 companies, more with a different job almost every year over all sorts of different industries and different functions. But mainly, eventually getting more into just business management and general management. I actually did not join full-time with Shaz and Kiks until just earlier this year.
Very cool.
And my background, my first life before my current life as Shaz and Kiks, it started with my undergrad major was Asian studies and political science. I've always really had this fascination and deep love for my culture and tradition. And I studied that, and then I didn't really know exactly what to do with it. And I entered the world of marketing here in New York City, went into digital marketing and specialized in digital analytics and strategy, worked at various big digital agencies in New York across industries, and then worked at Condé Nast, the publication company, for many years, and worked in digital growth and strategy and innovation on media outlets like Vogue and GQ, and then across the whole entire portfolio. So, yeah.
Amazing. Okay, take me to 2020 and your launch. You launched with one product, but two variations, two SKUs. What was that launch process like? What worked, what didn't work as you were kind of thinking about that launch marketing and getting your thing out into the world?
Yeah, so we started conceptualizing in 2018. We both found ourselves finally back in our home state in Texas. So as I mentioned, I'd been out in New York for many years, and Shaz was out in Dubai with her family working there for many years. And then we both kind of fortuitously right before 2018 moved back to our home state of Texas. We've always been super close as sisters. We always wanted to do something together, and we always knew that we wanted to do something that celebrated our culture and our heritage. We found ourselves one weekend visiting our parents in Houston, and they had just came back from their yearly trip to India. And this time, our mother brought back a bunch of this relatively new brand that was like luxury Ayurvedic hair care and skin care and body care. And it seems like it wouldn't be really new, but until maybe even 10 years ago in India, majority of beauty care was either using actual raw ingredients in a DIY way within your home and within your community, or you're using kind of masstige brands and from Procter & Gamble or Unilever and global companies like that. So it was relatively new seeing finished final goods that used Ayurvedic formulas and ingredients even in India, and kind of packaged in in a luxury prestige manner, and formulas that we hadn't really seen because we always just kind of make them in our kitchen or in our home. Anyway, so she brought back a whole bunch of these products. We were super excited, and it made us think back about our childhood, where we did experience our grandmother back when we'd visit in India, who would handcraft a lot of these ingredients and into hair masks and shampoos and face masks, and we we used these new products that came from India, and we were like, just kind of, it took us back to like when our hair felt the healthiest and the best. And we really kind of, that's when the light bulb started really kind of coming on for us. And we thought that what a wonderful way. It's like this, one of the world's oldest kind of like beauty traditions and rituals and practices, but they've just really stayed within our community, and they've, some ingredients have trickled out here and there, but no one's really told the whole story. And we also started then putting on kind of our business marketing caps, and really felt like hair care really had been nascent in the world of beauty, skincare, and cosmetics has really taken off, especially in like the clean green space. But hair care around 2018 was still like, it really hadn't. So we really felt like this was like a great space that had a lot of opportunity, and also was something that was so personal and passionate from us. And so that really started our journey into conceptualizing, and it took us about 2 years. And we were first-time entrepreneurs, and we, had a bunch of decades of working on the corporate world, but neither of us knew anything about beauty manufacturing or launching a new business. So a lot of, Googling and taking a leap of faith, and a lot of just kind of teaching ourselves. And with that, I feel like, with Shaz, she's an engineer, she's an MBAer, she's like, run big like business legs of like large companies, and she's definitely the more conservative out of the us two when it comes to kind of like growth and taking next steps. And so she was very adamant about, really using our first year as like an MVP and creating one product. We did have 2 variants, and really kind of using it as a test. She's a true engineer. It was like, let's test and learn. Let's see if this even remotely does anything, if anyone cares. So we really kind of took it very slowly and very methodically, very much like along the lines of like Shaz's engineering mind.
Okay, I love that. Very cool. And then I want to understand, like, once you actually had the product and you were launching it, what did you do to get that buzz? What was your launch like? We hear lots of different stories on the show. Some people launch and they're like, we sold out in a week. That was amazing. Some people launch and sell one product and then know that they have to like change everything. Where did you guys sit?
Well, we sold more than one, but we definitely didn't sell out. But, it's like, I know we like laugh about this all the time now. And it was, it's 3 years ago, which isn't that long, but you just learn so much from like day one till now. And it was like, so it seemed like a different time and a different era. So we had our one product. We obviously had, again, great like marketing backgrounds and business backgrounds, but it's so different doing your own thing versus like sitting within like a large corporation with plenty of
other resources.
Totally.
Money. Yeah. So, we really leaned on building a community on Instagram. It felt like, TikTok was still like in 2020 felt like that was where like teenagers were dancing, which obviously has evolved a lot since then, but still wasn't the place for beauty brands at that point. So we really focused on Instagram and really building out our email list. So we very early on created a specific quiz that was kind of fun to take that obviously encouraged you to put in your email. We did some paid advertising around it to get some additional emails around it. And we like really, it felt like it was a lot of storytelling, and that's still true to date. But it was really trying to connect on a personal level with almost like painstakingly like person by person, brick by brick. A lot of just like cold DMing and reaching out. I feel like egos are always like checked at the door when you're kind of starting your own thing.
And it was a very different kind of product that a Western consumer that's not part of their hair care ritual. And, oiling, the concept was just starting to trickle in a little bit.
Yeah.
And our first product was called the Scalp and Hair Pre-Wash. And even the idea, the name of it, pre-wash, like what is that?
Totally.
And
it's a whole new step.
Yeah, it's a whole new step. And it's also not exactly like a pre-poo, because there's some very specific ways in which we recommend putting it in, which is in dry hair before your shower. So like all these concepts are very new. So I think along with the storytelling came this like, what we very quickly realized is also that we need to really be educating on why you need this, this different step, and why is putting it in dry hair important? So really also like diving a little bit more into the science, because when we were growing up, it's not like somebody's like, oh, you're doing this and this is Ayurveda. It was just normal, and it was just what we knew. So really diving a lot more into the science of Ayurveda was another thing that we spent quite a bit of like that first year doing and educating them.
And when you guys first launched, this was using like your savings, you were bootstrapping. And then in 2021, you brought in some friends and family and some angels. How much did you bring in then?
So it was a little over $500,000.
Okay, amazing.
With friends and family.
And what were some of those key lessons that you learned? I think a lot of folks in the community are at the spot where they're like, okay, building a consumer product business it's going to cost some money, going to need some money.
Yes.
What have you learned about fundraising?
So I think one of the key lessons, and this was just through our journey, we had some interested investors early on, before we actually even decided we were going to do a friends and family round.
Yeah.
And they were interested in doing the entire, $500,000 just with the two of them. But they were from the tech world. And I think that was one of our key lessons very early on, is just hearing what their expectations were, what they're like. They were like, no, this growth trajectory that you're showing is bogus. You need to be like growing at but all that takes money and capital, right? So there is a balance between your need for cash and the growth. But I think obviously like tech investors have a very different mindset. So while there was this thing of like, oh, we need money, but there was also like, but we need it from the right people.
Yeah.
With the right mindset.
But that's also such an important thing to call out, because I think you can get into a position where you're like, I just desperately need some money in this business. But then, you can get, and I've seen it happen. I've spoken to people who have done this. You get 5 years in and you are stuck with investors who don't get your space, don't understand your vision, and have just these wild expectations of growth because they don't understand the category, and maybe your goals for the business are totally misaligned with their goals. So I think that's like really important for you to call out.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I think it was one of the first times between us, there was, I wouldn't say it was a bit of a disagreement, but there was a lot of back and forth.
Oh my God, if I started a business with my sister, at least you know that no one's hiding anything. It's all out
right,
in
it's
the
all
open.
there, You're not wondering, I wonder what she's thinking.
I wonder what she's thinking.
You can trust, right? You can trust the other person, that they are looking out for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like I feel like kind of almost like true younger sister, always over enthusiastic about everything. And I was just so excited that like, oh my God, like anybody wants to give us money.
Totally,
and and it was like, it's two trusted people from our network, have been part of a lot, very big successful companies. And when they showed interest, I was, I really was overly excited.
Yeah.
And we were needing money. And so I definitely was in like the yes category without I think super thinking through kind of long term. And that's where Shaz came in, and we took our time. And again, it never felt right to me either. And I think that's one of the things that we very much learned in that first year of even if you are new to the space, even if, maybe you've never had a corporate job, or you're totally new as an entrepreneur, or you don't know the industry as well as that what you're in and you're building, but there is something to your gut and trusting yourself, and it comes from you are doing this, you're believing in yourself, and you know that like yes, you can always learn from others, but at the end of the day, like this is yours and you have ownership of it, and to take like do the due diligence and take time. And it went back and forth for almost about like 2 months, right? And towards the end, it really started kind of coming into play where it didn't feel right.
But that's just such a skill and something that you have to practice and hone in on, of like not knowing what is like fear because you are going into something that's new, which you're going to come up with all the time, versus that gut uneasy sense of this isn't the thing I should be doing, and it's a different feeling, and it's just like practice of figuring out which one it is.
Yeah.
But I think that's really important to call out, and that applies for everything, not just friends and family, or not just fundraising. Okay, so 2022 Sephora Accelerate came about. You guys are now stocked with Sephora, which is awesome. Yeah. Why do you think Sephora picked you? Like, what was in your application for people who are in the beauty space they want to do the Sephora Accelerate program? Like just a couple of quick things that you think maybe made you stand out.
I think that, looking from their POV, Sephora is always trying to fill in, and this is Sephora and this is any big retail, is that they're always trying to fill in the gaps on their shelf, right? So, from very early on, if you have a specific retail or partner that you want to work with, like study their portfolio, study their, study their shelves digitally and brick and mortar, and really look where you can fill in openings and gaps, and that do align with what you feel like is like the larger audience trends and needs. I think that we were one of our winnings, like one of our big wins with Sephora was really our formulas. And that, they've told us that as well, honestly, where they were really impressed with like the quality and the efficacy of our products. Of course, like the fact that they come from Ayurveda and the ingredients, but they felt like our formulas specifically really filled a gap in their hair care portfolio.
Yeah. Okay, so make sure that you're filling a white space and that you're like communicating that to them about where you're going to sit within their assortment. That's a really good call out. And before the show, we were talking about, for those of us who are never going to get into Sephora Accelerate, what are 3 quick things that you took away from the program that you think people need to know, even if they don't get to it? One of them was around compliance.
Yeah.
So, and this is essentially if you're entering any big retail, that you do need to be EDI compliant.
What is EDI compliant?
Which is essentially the way that like your inventory system is talking to their inventory system, essentially. So there are inventory management systems. You would need to look for ones that are EDI compliant because that's how kind of like the two systems will talk to each other.
Who are you guys using? No, I put you on the spot.
Yeah. It's Sen 7.
Okay, yep.
So, and it does take some time. There's also like a lot of testing involved. So that's something that, if that's a goal of yours is to make sure you're kind of looking to that and seeing how you can have that set up.
Great tip. The next one was around language and naming and a lesson that you guys had with some of your products.
Yeah, so I think we originally started off with kind of like fun, whimsical, creative names. We had like, collection, then products fell under it. And it was like this whole, kind of flow chart of and now looking back, just overcomplicating. And it was something that was like fun and creative and meaningful to us. But at the end of the day, really looking at like the larger audience and the larger customer base. And if they didn't know anything about you, they don't know your name, they don't know, they're not familiar with your products or with, like the mission of your company, they should be able to immediately like look at your name, and know exactly what this is, what it's doing, what it's helping, what's the benefit, what's the use. And I think that's one of the things that sounds really basic, but I feel like a lot of us, when you are creators of your own brand, you're in your head a lot. Yeah, you get deep in it. You're looking down a lot. And again, it's so personal to all of us, right? That's building something. And sometimes I feel like we get, and this happened to us, that, we kind of lost where there's one thing of like when we're on our marketing channels on our D2C site and the level of information and education that we can relay is very different from when you're on a retail shelf or on a retail site. So really kind of cutting to the chase. Of course you can be creative and whimsical, but it needs to really relay over information.
What's an example of something that you're looking at that you would change?
So we had like, our very first shampoo and conditioner, that collection was called Unearth Yourself.
Yeah.
It was using a lot of clay and, kind of, again, like the powers of the earth. It was like, it's also like, who knows what the hell that is?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Yeah, what does that mean? And it's also like the real estate on your packaging is so precious. It's so small.
Because you don't have your whole TikTok and your whole website and all of that. Like, it's on a shelf.
Yes.
Yes.
And so every single like letter, every single number, any character on your packaging, it really needs to work hard.
Yeah.
And so, we've done away, we had collections and we've done away with collection names and I've also put a lot of, like really looking from like the customer, someone who does not know you at all, putting stepping into their shoes and looking at our like naming nomenclature and how we've kind of now fleshed it out. We look at it from the outside perspective, not from like the inside founder perspective.
Another story that you were both telling me before we recorded was around we had a product with the word cleanser in it. Tell me that story.
Yeah, so that first shampoo that we had, it was called the Balancing Clay Cleanser.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to kind of what Kiku was saying, you know, it was a bit whimsical, and the fact that like this clay, what it's really doing is cleansing your scalp. So we were like, why not call it a cleanser rather than a shampoo? And, you know, we can be differentiated and kind of all like that way of thinking. But very quickly, you also realize like when you're filling out all the information that goes onto the Sephora webpage, that putting Balancing Clay Cleanser means nothing in a title, right? So
also, if you're searching cleanser, you're not expecting to get a hair product.
Exactly.
Yes.
So I think just being really direct and really thinking about it through that lens is really important, you know, as you're entering Sephora. Because the thing is, you can go through different iterations, and you know everyone's going to have a learning journey about their packaging, but every single time it's going to cost you a little bit of time and money, right? To change your packaging for even existing products.
And we also have, just a call out, we have a free retail like pitch deck. If you want to go into retail, if you're exploring a wholesale part of your business, we have a free Canva template that anyone listening can customize and access, and I'll put it in the show notes because that just reminded me of that as well. The last thing I want to ask you both is for a resource, something that's been helping you as you've been building this amazing hair care business. Could be a book, could be another podcast, it could be really anything that's been helping you up level and the business grow as well. I'll start with you, Shaz.
So this is actually more of a little bit of a tip because, you know, fundraising can be tough.
Yes.
And then as a small business, it's also really hard. We went through this journey of like trying to get like a loan and a line of credit through like the big banks, which, you know, they look at your revenue and they're like, yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
So one, like really somebody gave us this tip, which I love to give as advice, is look at smaller like regional banks for some of that initial cash that you might need, which, you know, if you're not able to bootstrap, because they, especially if it's
loans.
Loans or a line of credit, could be two things that, and it is very hard to get it from the big banks. But if you look at like, so we have like a small Texas national bank or regional bank that we work with, and they've been amazing. And like, they really want to support, you know, their local entrepreneurs.
That's such a great tip.
You'll have much more success, and it's a whole different experience.
Wow. Okay, great tip. What about you?
I wanted to share 2 newsletters that I think are really helpful. One is Nick Sharma's newsletter, which I know is super popular, the D2C guy. Love reading that every Sunday. And then he also like always like links out to so many different resources. And then the other one is by Rachel Carton called Link in Bio. And we both used to work at Condé Nast at one point, and she used to be the social media manager for Bon Appetit, and then various brands as well. And now she creates this amazing newsletter that in the world of social media. And I think it's super great, smart resource for all things social media.
Well, thank you both so much for coming on the show. It's been awesome to hear about what you're building. I'm so impressed. You guys were one of the early brands, I think, that kind of like came on the radar as we were building Female Founder World. I know that you gifted in the summer gift bags last year, and we had amazing feedback from those products as well. And so I knew that I had to get you on the show and figure out exactly what it was that you were building and how you were doing it.
Well, we're so honored and appreciative of being part of this community and having the opportunity to chat with you.
Amazing.
Thank you, Jasmine.
Thank you. Quick shout out to all of our Business Bestie subscribers. If you are loving this show and you are building a consumer, CPG, or e-commerce business, or you're about to build one, this membership will give you access to the people, experiences, and the tools that you really need to build your dream business. Head to femalefounderworld.com/subscriber for more.